Good morning, everyone. This is Tammy Smith, Director of Training and Education with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. I'll be your moderator for today's program. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are pleased to present how to make the Michigan Clean Slate Law work for you, which will run approximately 60 minutes. The webinar is being archived and will be available shortly on demand. If you need assistance at any time today or have questions for our speaker, please type your question into the chat box on the lower left side of your screen. We will respond as quickly as possible. You'll also be able to download a copy of today's slides from the links box, which is also above the chat box. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Wendy Block, Vice President of Business Advocacy and Member Engagement for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Like Tammy said, my name is Wendy Block, and I'm Vice President of Business Advocacy for the Michigan Chamber. Thank you for being here this morning to learn about second chance hiring and how it might impact your business. This topic is especially relevant given that the Michigan legislature recently enacted a clean slate law. Public Acts 187 through 193 of 2020 specifies that certain individuals will have their criminal records automatically cleared, assuming that they don't commit another crime. The Michigan Chamber was involved in the drafting of this legislative package. We heard from members across the state who support the legislation because they either believe it's the right thing to do for individuals who have served their time and want to change their lives and become more productive, and or to increase the size of Michigan's labor pool. Proponents of this legislation argue that with 1 in 3 American adults having a criminal record, it's time to break down the barriers to employment, education, housing, and the like, and to pivot to a more inclusive environment for returning citizens. The Chamber did advocate for a number of changes to this legislation as it was introduced, and the legislation now does not provide for expungement of certain violent crimes as well as certain high-level white-collar crimes, including embezzlement, racketeering, forgery, counterfeiting, or cybersecurity, as well as other sophisticated white-collar crimes that would be punishable by 10 or more years of imprisonment. So while there are certainly provisions that would provide for a clean slate, there are certain crimes that employers would not have hidden from them when they do criminal background checks. We also have advocated for language to specify that employers can't be held liable for negligent hiring or negligent admission and the like if they don't have access to records that have been expunged. So basically, if you're going to hide some of these expunged records from employers in the criminal background check, that they shouldn't be held liable for things that happen subsequently. So we hope that you enjoyed the webinar today and that you find it helpful. And if you ever need assistance of the Chamber, you can feel free to reach out to me. My email is wb@michamber.com. My contact information also can be found on our website. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker, Kathryn Shibelski with KES HR Consulting. Kathryn, thank you so much for your time and for being here today, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Tammy. I am so excited to be here this morning and chat about something that is so important and is completely relevant considering our clean slate laws. So I just want to do a brief introduction of who I am and why I'm here chatting with you this morning. So I'm Kathryn. I have a small boutique firm located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, called KES HR Consulting. And I have been working in the human resources field since I started interning in high school for the Humane Society of the United States nearly 2 decades ago. I have a unique connection to second chance hiring, which drives my passion as I am married to a formerly incarcerated person who is in the workplace. And I have experience with the formerly incarcerated back from when I was 10, when my stepbrother was incarcerated for the first time. So I find that we as businesses and HR people in particular have such an amazing opportunity to change lives and communities by offering stable employment with a living wage to the recently released. I created a special program for employers who hire formerly incarcerated people to help those employers better help their formerly incarcerated people in their workplaces. So, hello everyone. I want to go over just a brief bit of housekeeping. This presentation should take about an hour, including some questions and answers at the end. But of course, as Tammy said, we can respond to any questions you have throughout. And I really am looking forward to having an open and candid and anonymous conversation with you all today about kind of a delicate subject, which is felons, having felons in your workplace. And I look forward to you being free and honest with your responses today. Okay, so let's kind of delve in. We're going to have a poll. I'd love to know, have you worked with or hired formerly incarcerated people before? So let's see if our poll initiates, and let's see if you can take a look at your poll, and let's see what our poll responses are. Who has worked with a formerly incarcerated person and or hired that you know of? Okay, we've got some responses coming in. All right, 60% say yes, you've worked with or hired them before. 40% not sure, which that happens too if you're not 100% sure about somebody's background if they don't bring it up. Very good. Okay, so we definitely have some people who have some experience with working with formerly incarcerated people. That's great. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. We are going to take this wonderful and anonymous opportunity to address the stigma of the felon. So I'm going to ask you to take this opportunity to navigate over to your chat box, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this next question. So what do you think of when you hear the word felon? And let's kind of unpack what some of these words mean. So go ahead and take a second in your chat box and tell me, what do you think of when you hear the word felon? Yep, we've got some answers coming in. Thank you so much for those who are participating. Dangerous, yep. Criminal, yes. Yep. Someone who hasn't been in prison, yes. It depends on what the charge was for. Yes. Yep. Trouble, yes. Thank you so much for everybody who's responding. Go ahead and type a few more in your chat box, and let's see what everybody's thinking. Violent, must be a bad person. Yep. It depends on which position you're hiring them for, certainly. Yes. Dishonest, shifty individual. Yes, thank you so much for everybody being candid with your responses today. Okay, felon is a really broad term. It can be a violent criminal, but it could also be something that maybe isn't necessarily a danger to hire them depending on the charge. Yes, great point, thank you. Drug addict, yes. Shady, yes. Yes. Okay, so everybody, do you see, and I know that you can't see what your fellow participants are actually typing in, and I'm reading them out. However, do you hear kind of these broad terms, right? They're not really positive, what we're coming up with today. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of stigma around that term, felon. And when you're getting these criminal background reports back, and people are labeled as felons, imagine what that's like for them, trying to find a job under those circumstances, right? Yes, a couple more responses have come in. Serious crimes, assault, someone who won't abide by the rules. Yes, yes. And imagine, if you're hiring from this pool of people, you know, given all of these responses, would you want to hire somebody who's got these words that you're associating with them? It's kind of scary, right? Very good. Thank you so much again for being so candid with your responses. So, let's move on. We talk a lot about biases in our society today, unconscious or conscious biases. I found a quote I thought was very relevant. You may not be able to control every situation and its outcome, but you can control your attitude and how you deal with it. As we seek to understand our own beliefs around having somebody with a criminal background in your work situation, we can move on from those beliefs. We can break those down. As soon as you're able to identify them, you can move on from them with ease. A couple of other responses I'll read to you right now. Yes, scary, but I try to remember that each story is different. Yes, thank you so much for saying that, because that is really the crux of the thing. Everybody has a story, and everybody's perception and perspective is different that they bring to your workplace. And so it's so important not to judge a book by its cover, right? And I know that's kind of cliche to say, but it's so true, because you're not sure. There's I've met so many different people who have such heartfelt stories and backgrounds that really pull at the heartstrings and are caught in unbelievable situations, and that I was so happy to work with. I wanted to also highlight this quiz. It's an implicit bias test that Harvard put out, and you can obviously jot down the link if you'd like right now. But these are some next steps to continue the conversation of understanding your own biases, because it's really important that you break those down before beginning the journey of second chance hiring within your organization. Okay, so thanks again for your candid responses. We're going to move on to some of the top hang-ups that we as employers and human resources professionals in particular have with regard to second chance hiring. Okay, so the first one, fear. Fear from what you read on a background check or relying on third-party screeners to make the decision for you. And maybe if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat box, I didn't preload this as a poll. I'm just curious, do any of you use a third-party screener who sort of delivers a report to you and says, yep, felon, and then without any of the historical background or any of the story or without any of the details behind it? And so you then, maybe your company policy is that if they are a certain level of criminal, they're an automatic out, right? So I'm curious to see if anybody has that. Some people are responding. Thank you so much. Somebody says she reviews it herself. That's great. Yes, it's really important to get the background, get the full details, as it were. As you can imagine from that first bullet point, people have concerns about safety in their workplace and not understanding. Some people don't understand the language of the law. For example, some people don't understand, if you're getting a background check yourself, do you know the difference between assault and battery? Do you, especially in your jurisdiction, do you know what larceny is? So are you looking these things up? Are you delving deeper into understanding what that is? Another hang-up that most employers have is that there's resistance from other employees, as you can imagine. So some people maybe say, oh, you like the general idea of giving somebody a second chance, right? but maybe not in their workplace, not in my workplace. I don't want to open that up to potential danger or whatever in my workplace, but they're sort of okay with the idea in general. Does anybody have a workplace like that? Maybe some of your employees say, yeah, it's a great idea, but not here, not here. We're not going to do that here, right? Okay, a couple of other audience suggestions have come in with regard to whether or not you're screening people yourself. We have a question, shouldn't their background be confidential? Yes, but if you're a human resources professional and it's part of your job to sort of open that up and take a look at people and who you're hiring, it can be in your job description to take a look at their background. And maybe the audience member who asked about that, the confidential, if you have a follow-up question about that, please let us know if I'm not answering that. Yes. Well, we've got somebody who says our workplace is very open to felons. That's excellent. Yes. Resistance and objections by other employees is their main issue. Yes. Okay. Great. So our third concern is a concern about liabilities. Some people and businesses decide that they just don't need the liability, right? And so, Wendy chatted a little bit about the Clean Slate Law in talking about negligent hiring liability and negligent retention. Yes. More audience responses are coming in, and it's fantastic. Thank you so much for being so interactive with me today. Is anybody concerned about the liability, the potential of the liability of hiring somebody who has a checkered past, as it were? Let me know in the chat box. And then our last hang up that we've got is really having misunderstandings of restrictions on hiring people with any type of record, which might not be true within your industry. So, one of the more obvious things that we think of when we're chatting about this particular hang up is hiring people who have criminal sexual offenses in a school environment. That's sort of the easy connection that many of us, it's sort of the obvious no, right? But, you may work in an industry where you think that you can't hire anyone with a felony, but maybe that's not true. Perhaps there is room for, let's say you're working at a school, perhaps you have the ability to hire a janitor who has a prior drug conviction or something like that. Do you understand the point? Yes. Okay, let's take a look at what our audience questions are right now. Okay, we have one of our audience members who works in the housing industry. She says that we're very open to second chances. We just have to be a little careful on offenses that we can accept. Yes. And offering second chances frequently. That's lovely. It's beautiful. I love to see the turnaround in our society right now. I think that we're just much more open at this point in our lives. All right, let's move on. Why second chance hiring is a no-brainer, at least from my perspective, of course. So there are some tax incentives for businesses and federal bonding that do exist out there. And drop in the comment section if anybody, are you guys participating in the WOTC program, WOTC? That's through the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor. And it promotes the hiring of people from specific target groups that experience barriers for employment. So it's not just formerly incarcerated people, of course, but it does include them. And so it applies to previously incarcerated individuals hired no later than 1 year after their conviction or release from prison. And you can get up to $2,400 for each qualifying hire who works for at least 400 hours and up to $4,000 for long-term family assistance recipient hires. So you can claim a tax credit on an unlimited number of qualifying new hires. Yes. Okay, so we've got a couple of people who are familiar with the program, a couple of people who are not familiar. Yes, the WOTC program. Yeah, we can drop a link. I'll drop a link at the end, okay, through the Department of Labor. And we do have one question. Does second chance law apply to liquor licenses? My brother's a felon and restaurateur, but unable to have a liquor license despite being a model citizen for 20 years. That's a great question. I don't believe that you know, maybe Wendy has more information. I'm trying to remember about that. Let me think on that a little bit more, John, about the liquor law license. I don't know that your brother will be able to have a liquor license. I don't think that it applies to that. Did everybody get Wendy's email address too before she logged off? It is wblock@michamber.com. So WB as in boy. Great. And Tammy just said she just posted it. Thank you. Yes. So John, you may want to email her as well. She may have more information about the liquor license. Okay. Did everybody know that there is also a federal bonding program through the U.S. Department of Labor? And it actually provides fidelity bonding for the first 6 months of employment for hard-to-place job applicants. It doesn't cost anything for the employer or employee. It does provide up to $5,000 worth of protection against losses that may come about from an employee who commits forgery, theft, or embezzlement or larceny. So that's also an interesting thing to look into if you're feeling not so sure about hiring, about second chance hiring, looking into the federal bonding program. And moving on from that, and I can certainly provide that information as well if everybody would like. So recent research has found that employees with records are actually retained at higher rates than those without criminal records. Better retention can significantly reduce an employer's recruitment and training costs, as you all know, for lower skilled white-collar workers, which analysts estimate are close to $4,000 per employee. In fact, with higher retention rates and greater loyalty, job seekers with criminal histories, researchers say, are a better pool for employers. Hence my third bullet point there. So that research was done by the ACLU, and it's called Back to Business, Now Hiring Formerly Incarcerated Job Seekers, Benefits to Your Company. Okay. And then companies with fair chance policies are also playing an important role in reducing public spending associated with cycles of reincarceration. This may seem like an obvious point, but employment is an absolutely critical factor associated with reductions in recidivism. So 2 years after release, employed individuals were twice as likely to have avoided arrest as their unemployed counterparts. So if we as business owners are able to provide jobs as a stable living wage to a recently released person, we are providing a cornerstone for them not to be sucked back into that system of reincarceration. And then by doing that, we're also expanding employment opportunities that would also improve spending and economic conditions in communities that are most damaged by mass incarceration. And there was a Washington State study that revealed that the benefit to taxpayers from a reduction in crime due to job training and employment for a single formerly incarcerated individual amounted to more than $2,600. So there is, my point in pointing these out is that there is an actual, positive, real, tangible result from employing this group of people. Any questions so far? Let's just take a quick little check-in with you all. And you guys are experts at using the chat box by now. I want to just check in with you quickly. How's everybody thinking? What's everybody thinking about this? Is everybody good? Anybody have any questions before I move on to what you can do to set yourself up for success should you choose to move in the direction of second chance hiring? I'll just wait just 1 minute. I'll take a sip of my water. Great. Okay, we've got one question that came in. I would be interested in the benefits as we do hire for second chances. Okay. Yep. So, Sarah, is that the WASI that you were interested in, the tax incentives? Just drop a quick chat box if that's what you're meaning. And then we're going to move on to the top 5 things that you guys can do in your businesses to set you up for success with this very special population. So the first thing that you can do is you can make sure that your employee handbook is written at a 3rd to 5th grade level. I found this really great readability tool that I can drop into the comments once we're finished with the main part of the presentation that actually can check sections of your employee handbook to check the readability and see where your employee handbook is at right now versus where maybe you want it to be. So if you're able to write your employee handbook at a 3rd to 5th grade level, you are going to make things so much clearer for this population and so much more inclusive. So that's sort of the goal of this, is to make your hiring program, your onboarding program, into a more inclusive environment for formerly incarcerated people. The second thing is helping your frontline managers who are actually managing this population address their implicit biases. So remember that Harvard quiz that I posted before? Maybe have them do that too. And maybe you're having other training programs that address their biases. Number 3 is that your onboarding program addresses in detail how to read and understand a paycheck. That may seem like common sense. However, I think that we as a population sort of gloss over this point and take it for granted, frankly. Many of these folks haven't ever had a job before. And so, it's almost as if you're talking to a 17-year-old kid who's got a summer job with you guys, and they don't know how to read and understand their paycheck. And it's great for their self-empowerment. The 4th thing is that you have a resource packet available to any employee that helps them find local charities and state local programs to ensure their basic needs are met. So some of the key local resources that you should have, and I'm talking about maybe like making like a 3-ring binder that you have available for people to look through, that you keep maybe in your HR office or something like that. You're addressing food, shelter, clothing, mental health and addiction, utilities assistance, child care, and child care assistance, education, low-cost health care, community health clinics, and then like an example of a paycheck, what the taxes and deductions are. And then the fifth thing that I suggest that you do to set yourself up for success is when hosting a company party or event, you have ensured that all of your employees are allowed to attend the venue of your choice. So is the location, if you are hiring registered sex offenders, is the location of your choice, is that okay? Is that friendly for them? What's your alcohol policy? Is alcohol served at events? Are there non-alcoholic options? What types of activities typically take place? Are they inclusive? So again, the goal is to get people into a more inclusive environment where you're thinking outside the box and allowing these things to happen. I have a story about tip number 5. I was planning a company picnic, and that company picnic was going to be held at a local park. And as I was planning it, I was getting lots of RSVPs. Everything was going really well. But I had this one guy who was a team lead, so he was in a position of leadership, and I was trying to grow him into more of a position of leadership. And I hadn't gotten his RSVP back. And so I wondered, I'm like, what's the deal? Maybe he's busy, but I think this is a really great opportunity for him to show up and come and mingle with the rest of the leadership team at our company picnic and show up for his team. So one day I went over to him and I pulled him to the side and I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, Kathryn, he said, I can't attend. I can't go to the park. I'm not allowed there. And I just want to put this into context. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a perspective. And this is, again, one of the reasons why it's so important to learn people's stories. If they're willing to share it with you, it is just so important. And so I felt so badly because I had created this entire wonderful picnic event, and one of our blooming leaders was unable to attend this event. I didn't even think about it. He was literally not able to go to the venue, something as simple as a venue. So food for thought for you guys as you are planning company events in the future when we're through our COVID situation, of course. Okay, so here's something I want you to think about before we go into more of a Q&A. And I'm going to go over some of the resources, too, that I have for you guys today. I want you to think about where you are in your current business, okay? Are you hiring people? Are you doing the second chance hiring? Are you considering second chance hiring? Are you, how are you feeling about it? Are you scared about the influx of people who might be coming to you once this Clean Slate Law goes into full effect and the automation happens, where people's backgrounds are cleared? What are your next steps? What is I want you all, everybody who's here, I'd love for you to drop in the chat box again. What is your immediate next step that you need to focus on to create a successful and inclusive environment for your formerly incarcerated employees? So drop a comment, tell us what you come up with. Do you need to chat with an employment lawyer? Do you need to create that resource packet with help and information about where people can find benefits and clothing and shelter and that sort of thing? Is it that you are going to overhaul your onboarding process to make it a bit more inclusive? Is it that you have now decided that this is not worth your time and you're not going to do it at all? I hope that's not the case. What is your immediate next step for you in your business? And really the question is, will you be the first employer who gives the recently released person a chance? Because sometimes somebody comes to you and doesn't have any type of employment history, and they just need that chance, that first person. Okay, we've got some answers coming in. I would like to learn more about who qualifies for the Clean Slate laws. I think if I had this information, I'd be able to help quite a few people if I knew where to direct people. Okay. We need to create that resource packet. It actually will help all low-income workers. Yes, absolutely. It will also add to our onboarding to make it a little easier to understand. Never thought about them not being comfortable about saying they don't know how to read certain things. Yes. Yep. Very good. I'm going to just take another minute here, and I'd really love to hear what is one tangible thing that you all can do as your next step in your businesses where they are today to get ready for these Clean Slate laws and potentially towards second chance hiring. And while we wait, I'm just making a note to myself about what I need to drop into the chat box for you all once we are finished. Okay. Okay, we've got another comment. Thank you again for everybody who's responding. You guys have been amazing with your interaction this morning. I'm very pleased with this new law and plan to revise our onboarding material. This is a very logical and needed reform. Excellent. Yes, I agree. We have hired many felons over the years, but I've never connected with programs that would assist us financially in this hiring process. Yes. Many people don't know that those programs exist. Sarah asks, just so I understand, we will not see the offense on the background. It would just be like hiring someone without an offense on their record. Yes, that's my understanding, is that it's completely wiped clean, as if it never existed. Yep. And so here lies the rub, right? So you're getting somebody in, you don't see that they have a background anymore because it's been wiped clean, right? But they've got all the baggage from prison, and one of the things that I didn't get into today that is a big section of my program is talking about post-incarceration syndrome and kind of what all happens in prison and what that means for employers when they get out. So yes, you're dealing with the baggage of incarceration without knowing necessarily, unless they are freely giving you that information, which is why, sort of cutting it off at the head, right, or cutting it off at the pass, like being proactive about creating these programs now, this inclusivity, is really important. Okay, anybody else want to share about what their immediate next steps will be for their business, depending on where they're at? We have a couple of other questions about the Clean Slate law. Yeah, so Jody asks, when does this new law go into effect, and will we still be able to see these offenses on their background check? I think so. I believe that that they have until 2022 or 2021, like later in 2021, in order to maybe I can check on that, but they have a couple years to put in these automated processes into place. It's, as you can imagine, going to take a while for the structures to be created so that these things can happen automatically. And then, how do we know to assist these new hires if we don't know? I assume we would have to cater our assistance in a way that is not offensive. Yes, so my suggestion is that you're essentially creating these onboarding programs as if you are going to deal with them. So you're essentially catering it to low-income people and people who have barriers to employment already. And so within that group, of course, is the formerly incarcerated people. But frankly, if you are making these changes now, it's going to positively affect many other sections of people as well. Okay. Great, thanks everybody. Okay, so a couple of resources that I want to share with you before we get into any of the other questions that everybody has. Some things that are here in Michigan. There is a nonprofit called Safe and Just Michigan, so safeandjustmi.org, where you can find more information about all of this. One of my friends, her name is Sarah, she runs a staffing agency here in Grand Rapids that caters towards hiring formerly incarcerated people, and her company is called mixedmi.com. So if you're here in West Michigan, you may want to check her out as a resource of hiring from this section of people. Have you ever heard of Dave's Killer Bread? They have an entire playbook that you can look up because they have been hiring and doing second chance hiring for quite a while now. So Dave's Killer Bread Foundation.org is another place to take a look at. There is a couple of companies. One of them is honestjobs.co, and jailstojobs.org, placing people who have criminal backgrounds into your organization. So if you're looking for pipelines, you may want to check those out. Okay, and last but not least, if you have not headed over to SHRM's gettingtalentbacktowork.org, you should go check them out too, because they've got lots of additional resources as far as, from a legislative standpoint, from taking a look at, how you're transitioning people back into the workplace, all of that sort of thing. That's SHRM's particular website, gettingtalentbacktowork.org. Okay. Let's see. Just included, this is the official questions section. We have answered a lot of questions already. If anybody else has any other questions, I am so more than happy to answer them now. I posted a picture of my husband and I to show you guys that he's a normal guy. Even though he's been incarcerated, he's a normal guy. Okay, is there going to be a list of things that qualify for expungement? Yes, there is. Find out more about the Clean Slate Law, as we currently have a felon in our employ that we would like to help get his white-collar charges expunged. Yes. Okay. Yes, and so some white-collar crimes will be expunged, some will not be qualified for that. Great. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to wait to see if anybody else has any other questions that they want to type in. And I can hand this back over to Tammy. If you have additional questions too, if you want help with anything, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I am mostly. And then I am going to get you guys the links to the WOTC program and the Clean Slate Law, and I'll drop them in right now. And I'm going to mute myself for the moment. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Kathryn, can you share your email, or is it on one of the slides?
Oh, sure. Yep, I can certainly do that.
Thank you. So we did get another question in. So is there somewhere we can go get answers on the Clean Slate laws? One of your resources, Kelly, can be Wendy Block. Kathryn also posted her email. You could also contact Wendy Block, who was on this call earlier, to get more information. Or Kathryn, is there other sources?
Yeah, so, you know, when I was out there looking around in preparation for a time together today, I think that they're still figuring out how all of this is going to work, because it didn't seem like they had a lot of information out there that's clear cut as of right now. We may need to wait until the new year to see if they've been able to bang out sort of the specifics. But I will certainly, I'll post right now where I was looking for more information, and I'll share it with you all right now. Thank you.
Okay, if that appears to be the end of our questions, I'm going to go ahead and close it down. If you guys would like to get a hold of Kathryn or Wendy, both their emails are posted. But I'd like to say thank you to Wendy and Kathryn for their time, and thank you to the audience for your great participation in this. The survey and certificate are now available through the webinar website. The recording of this webinar will be available shortly also. You guys will receive an email when that's ready. For our upcoming webinars, please go to webinars.michamber.com. Today's program is copyright 2020 by the Michigan Chamber of Commerce with all rights reserved. Have a wonderful day. You may now disconnect.